What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something to go back to the comic book shop for or not. So make sure you subscribe to get one of these every single week. The one that I want to talk about right now, Batman White Knight number 3. So Batman White Knight is the story of a sane Joker, somebody that's a victim of the brutality of Batman, who's been harming Gotham more than he's been helping, and ultimately the cure for insanity is ultimately what makes the Joker even more dangerous. So now we see him reunited with the original Harley Quinn after being duped by a duplicate for so long, and now they're going to take back the city for the people. So let's dive into the story and see what this issue's got for us.
Batman White Knight number 3 opens up in a relatively different way, because what we see is Zoinko's joke shop, which appears to be some sort of lair, and then we see a female assembling what appears to be her kit for villainy. And immediately on the second page, we get the reveal that this is Marian Drews. So this is the fake Harley Quinn that was taking place of Harleen Quinzel when the Joker was at his most insane. And clearly we see the distinction of the diamonds of Harley Quinn and these poisoned rose, the acid rose on her lapel. So I am really stoked on this character design from Sean Gordon Murphy, and this implies big things for the story of Batman White Knight. Immediately after that, we're going to jump over to the action where we see this this grouping of supervillains that are out there wreaking havoc on Gotham City, and they all have these glowing green eyes. This is clearly a nod to the Mad Hatter's influence that Jack Napier implemented in the last issue, where he basically broke down pieces of Clayface, controlled Clayface, and then is using them to control the villains that are of Gotham. And we see the battle between Nightwing, we've got Barbara Gordon's Batgirl in there, we've got Batman coming through, knocking people over. He basically runs over Bane, and there's a lack of control when it comes to this situation. They're trying to diversify, they're trying to split them up so that way they can take them down a little bit more. And then only we've got the Two-Face gang, we've got Bane, we've got Croc, and they're headed to Backport. And what it comes down to is that even though Harvey Bullock, it really wants Commissioner Gordon to listen to him, he doesn't. He is following along with the Batman as he takes him into the low-rent downtown district where, there's a lot of poverty and those kind of things. This is the location of Jack Napier's new library, where ultimately Bane and Killer Croc go wild, destroying this new foundation for improving the society of this lower-class area of Gotham, which leaves Batman brutalized, bloody, isolated, crawling into the Batmobile and headed off to nurse his wounds. Barbara Gordon ultimately is just wondering, what's happening to us? What happened to the team? What happened to what they believed in? And this is where we see that, Harleen Quinzel was controlling those kind of things based on the devastation. Jack Napier's plowing through a number of different files that are based on, based out of this law office of Hill and Hill. And this is when he finds what we consider, or what you're going to consider, Gotham's biggest secret. As we kind of put that on ice, we see Batman making his way back to the Batcave, finding his way next to Alfred, who wakes up and sees this broken, battered, and brutalized Bruce Wayne lying on the ground, kind of unable to cope with the situation, and Alfred does what Alfred does. But before we can get to that, we see, Jack Napier making his statement, talking about everything that's going on, talking about the plague of Batman and what it means to have this Batman destruction fund, this $3 billion every year that's funneled into the repair of the city on behalf of Gotham's elite, who buy up the properties and sell them and really drive out the lower class citizens. It's this whole kind of back counterpoint 1% plot to undermine the roots of Gotham and oppress those people around it at the cost of the taxpayers. So this is a bombshell, but not nearly as big a bombshell as what we wake up to, or at least what Batman wakes up to. Alfred has placed him in his own bed at the sacrifice of his own life, leaving a note for Master Bruce, one final goodbye. And this is a really serious goodbye because Alfred, we see him buried. We see the, back to his army days, the various things that he taught, Bruce over the course of his lifetime, the real act of being a caretaker. And what we end up with is the explanation of what everything meant, what Alfred meant from the perspective of Nightwing. We find that Jason Todd is actually the first Robin and Dick Grayson's Nightwing is the second Robin, and that, Jason was like a son, but then once he was lost or gone missing or killed by the Joker, it made a very different impression on how Bruce treated Dick Grayson, and that Alfred was the one that was always family. He was the one that was always the father figure. And this is just continuing to push this story to the point where now it's not necessarily about fighting with Batman. It's about fighting against Batman. It's about regaining the city from Batman, saving the city from Batman, protecting them. And there are other people that try to protect Gotham too. As Jack and Harley are walking down through Backport, we see a mugging kind of take place, but ultimately Harley can really handle herself. But that's where we're introduced to another character from the current continuity, Duke Thomas. Except this is Lieutenant Duke Thomas, a much older, much wiser, much more hardened former, special forces lieutenant. And this is a very different story because what he's done in the background is he's united the gangs of the area, doing what the GCPD can't and doing it better. And we see this, YMCA that was shut down that has been turned into some sort of headquarters for where these people can kind of meet up together. There's a whole cruise of them that really roam the streets protecting people from the seedy underbelly of the city of Gotham. At this point in time, we also see Gordon losing his trust in Batman based on the expenditures, what was revealed in Jack Napier's report. The allies that Batman has are slowly dwindling. You've got Nightwing going away. You've got Barbara Gordon's Batgirl pulling away, and now Gordon himself is losing faith in the Cape Crusader. And now we get to the other plot point. When we first saw this Neo Joker make her way onto the scene, we were wondering what she was going to be doing, and now we find out what. She finds Clayface, she finds the Mad Hatter, and basically he's just this kind of dust storm that kind of wilts away to the point where we only see his eye and his brain with the Mad Hatter card stuck in it to control him. And then we find the vault of villains that Jack Napier has been using to wreak havoc on Gotham City. So when we end Batman White Knight number 3, we have two story arcs that are really kind of going along, and then we have a third that is really emerging. So the first arc is the kind of war between the classes. We have the 1% versus the 99%, and Batman is being viewed as a tool of the 1% to kind of instill this unbridled law, this unbridled rule on the city. And he's costing the taxpayers billions of dollars a year. It is really inspired by Jack Napier's push to show the villainy, the true cost of having a Batman. And as kind of a subplot to that, we also have the war between the Bat family, the allies of Batman, and Batman himself, as he kind of loses himself more to this grief, this agony, this pain. It's a really interesting concept. And then emerging from this is the third plot line where we see the Neo Joker taking her role into her own hands. So she loved the insanity, she loved the crazy, she loved the madness that was the Joker. And now, because the Joker, Jack Napier, has gone straight and, Harley Quinn, Harleen Quinzel, is lost in her own romance, the Neo Joker, Marian Drews, is going to, take up the mantle. The Joker isn't just a person. The Joker's an ideology. The Joker is a force of nature, and she is going to bring that storm to Gotham City. So that's where we kind of end, and overall, I really appreciate what Sean Gordon Murphy's doing with this story. I love his art. I dig his writing. It can be a little bit chaotic at some point in times. It doesn't feel as kind of concise as it needs to be, but I'm totally fine with that because he backs it up with alarming visuals. There's complete pages where you could just wipe all the words off of it and it would be perfectly fine. And then as far as the actual art's concerned, again, top notch on that one. So Batman White Knight number 3 is definitely something that I would recommend. Go back and get the first issue, get the second issue, and then continue on with number 3 and look forward to the next 9 issues that are going to come out of this 12-part miniseries. But that's my idea. Those are my comments. That's my review on Batman White Knight number 3. But I want to know what you guys think too, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.